Hello and welcome to another video. We are in the woods. It's very cold and frosty. The lock is frozen over. There's ice everywhere. So the plan is to finish working on my bushcraft shelter and light a fire and hopefully survive the night. This is the shelter so far. Some of you might recognise it from a previous video. So there's plenty of downed material that I can use. So I'll start collecting. Hoping that I'd find some boughs or something that I could waterproof it with, but there doesn't seem to be anything at all. So I think I'm just going to rely on piling and piling and piling and piling. It's not due to rain, it might snow, but we're quite well sheltered here under the spruce anyway, so I highly doubt that anything's going to actually get through and penetrate the shelter. So we've been working on this shelter for maybe 2.5 hours now. So there's still plenty of gaps, as you can see, but this is the front. And then if we walk around to this side, this is the completed side. This is the incomplete side. So there's still a bit of work to do up the top here. You can see there's still some gaps on that bit there. And then there's some gaps down here. I'm not expecting it to rain, although this would shed most of the rain if it did. Now, on the topic of rain and snow, if you're going to build a shelter using duff or leaves or material off the ground, you do need to be mindful that if it is already cold or has been frozen, just make sure that you're not piling up icy twigs and things like that and placing them on top of your shelter, because if you do that, obviously with your body heat, it will melt all of the ice and then you'll end up soaking wet in your shelter anyway. So just be mindful of that. I don't know if you can tell, but it is starting to get dark in the woods. I got myself a little bit, see that? While I was just finishing the shelter off there. Not a big deal. I could have used my gloves for this. I do have gloves, but because the ground is so cold and wet, I actually thought I'd rather save my gloves for the evening when I'm really going to need them to help keep my hands warm, and just do all the building and all the tasks barehanded, because it will be easier to warm up my hands and my gloves than it will be to dry my gloves out over the fire. That all the way down, I think. So I'm not sure if you can see that very well, but it says about 5 degrees Celsius and it's not even 6 p.m, so I think we're in for a very chilly night. good start. So there we have it, fire, shelter. Now I've just got to cook some food. Well, I'm not sure how long the birds are going to be noisy like this for, but shelter is done, the fire is established. So all I need to do now is wait for this to burn down a little bit so I can get sort of a coal bed, and then I will cook some food. So it is too dark to see me without the light, and obviously because I'm in a pine forest, it's really important that I don't have a huge fire, because obviously I've basically just made like a great big tinder box. So I've got tiny little fire in my fire pit, so I can keep it nice and close and tucked in, so I can get maximum advantage from the warmth without actually risking like a huge fire. Nothing fancy, I'm just gonna throw them straight on there and let them do their thing. Definitely well done. I prefer medium rare if I have the option, but I'm super duper hungry, so a steak is a steak at the end of the day when you're in the woods. So I'm just gonna try my boots out and my socks, because I didn't bring a change of clothes at all, and also I got quite damp when I was building the shelter earlier, so I'm gonna dry my shoes and socks out. And then it's quite cold, so once I've dried everything out, I'm gonna hunker down. I do wish I had bought my wool blanket, but I've got my ever favourable camping quilt that always comes with me, because I can obviously sleep underneath it, but I can also wear it like a poncho. So if it does get really, really cold, I can wear it like a poncho and then sit really close to the fire with it. So I thought I'd bring that, but kind of regretting not bringing the wool blanket as well, but we'll make do. This little fire is kicking out a reasonable amount of heat now that it's got a good coal base. By the shelter, it's a fantastic 20 degrees. Let's see if you come back down into the less dense trees, out of the pines and away from the shelter. It's almost 0 degrees. Well, I'm not gonna lie to you, I was laying here and I just kind of started dozing off, so that tells me that it's bedtime. So I pulled the fire in a little bit closer, but not so close to shelter or fire, but just close enough that I can get the warmth. So, lights off, and if anything interesting happens, I will check in with you guys, but apart from that, I'll see you in the morning. Right, good morning. It's about 8 a.m. It just started to get light in the woods, but my fire has died, so I'm going to get all of my bits out of the shelter, like my sleeping pad and stuff like that, and then I'll relight this fire and get on some food. So generally the night was good. I don't know if you can tell the direction that the smoke is actually going in at the moment, but basically what happened was, for some reason the wind changed direction last night, so instead of the smoke going off to the side, it actually sort of barreled in on itself and ended up going right into the back of the shelter. It just meant that I had to move over, which is not really an issue, but I think in order to prevent that happening again, I should perhaps build like another wall, almost like a sort of a smoke screen on here, but I've not got time to do that today, so perhaps that will be something to revisit in another video. So my tripod is still out, but we're all packed up, so I'm just going to get my seat, sit myself down and make some food. So you can't have a fire without marshmallows, but we've also got some Scottish handmade beef burgers and some sourdough rolls, which are the wrong shape, but I'm sure we'll manage. So I'll just take you for a quick walk around the shelter now that it's light enough. So here is the shelter. I'll just walk you around carefully. So you can see we're covered all the way around. And I believe if you include the time it took for me to make the other half of the shelter, I'd say there's probably about 6 hours worth of work here. Well, there's not really much left to do apart from eat marshmallows and wait for this fire to die. If you like what you see and would like to see more videos from me, then be sure to like, subscribe, leave a comment, etc, etc, blah blah blah, you know how it is. But that's all we've got time for, so I'm going to call it here. So thanks again, and I'll see you in the woods.